Hey folks, Cam Rogers here for the Cam Rogers Show on this Friday morning. I'm not in the Chat Sports Studios. I'm actually live here at the AT&T Byron Nelson second round competition going on right now. You see the luscious vegetation behind me. The 18th hole is right behind my shoulders. You'll see some play as I go throughout the broadcast here. I've got you covered for the next hour here, and we got a lot to get to across the NFL, including Reuben Foster, Dez Bryant, Terrell, Owens trying to make a comeback in the National Football League. So here is a rundown of what is to come. So I'll start things off with the latest NFL headlines, as I always do, talking about some of the big-time stories here on this Friday morning, followed by the top 5 teams for Terrell Owens. I'm giving you my top 5 selections in terms of where he could sign with as he makes this NFL comeback here. He's 44 years old, by the way. He's trying to become the first Hall of Famer to be an active player in the NFL. And then later in the show, I'm going to talk about the top 10 offenses entering 2018. So, talk about the Detroit Lions a little bit. Maybe the San Francisco 49ers will make my top 10. The Philadelphia Eagles, a team to watch as well. I'll go through my top 10 teams there. And then to wrap up the program, did you guys see the Toronto Raptors social media fail? It was on our NBA Weekly show yesterday. I want to bring it up as well because it's just one of the more peculiar things out there. So do want to mention that at the end of the program. All right, with that, let's get into the latest NFL headlines, and we're talking about the Reuben Foster investigation and the ongoing trial with that. So here is the latest development. Ex-girlfriend Alyssa Ennis has recanted all of her initial accusations of domestic violence and admitted to lying to police. So she called it all a money scheme and that she wanted revenge on Foster for getting dumped. So this is what she said, quote, "I wanted him to be extra. I wanted him to go down. I wanted to sue Reuben. It was a money scheme. It was all about money. I wanted to get him." Now, Ennis also says that Reuben Foster did not throw a cell phone at her. Actually, she was the one that threw the cell phone at Reuben. And then Ennis also said she lied about Foster throwing her dog. So essentially, everything that she accused Reuben Foster of was a lie, and she testified about that yesterday. So there were 3 charges at hand here with Reuben Foster. One of them, of course, the domestic violence accusation, and then a gun charge as well, and falsely reporting a crime. A couple other things to kind of note there as well. But Foster will have to wait until next Wednesday now to find out if he will stand trial on these domestic violence charges. So we probably can project that these charges are going to be dropped here when you have the ex-girlfriend testifying under oath saying, yeah, everything I said about this was a lie. There's no reason for this to go to trial. I don't have a law degree or anything like that, but I can confidently say that the DA's office is going to drop these charges. Now, here's the thing with Reuben Foster. You have the court of law. But you also have the National Football League and the collective bargaining agreement, which says that Roger Goodell is the judge, jury, and executioner in terms of these issues. So Roger Goodell could still implement that baseline 6-game suspension for Reuben Foster, and we could draw some comparisons to the whole Ezekiel Elliott situation, although with Ezekiel Elliott, the accuser never testified. In this case, for Reuben Foster, the accuser is testifying or had testified that all of it was a lie. So there's a more compelling argument for Foster rather than the situation with Ezekiel Elliott. Whether or not Elliott deserves 6-game suspension is up for debate, of course. But with Reuben here, it looks like there's still the potentiality that Roger Goodell could implement that 6-game baseline suspension there. I really don't know what Roger's going to do here. But if he does indeed put that into fruition and implement that, there's going to be a fight to the death from the Reuben Foster camp, and this could go through several phases of court and all of this stuff, essentially what we saw with Ezekiel Elliott a year ago. So we'll be talking more about courts and law terminology and all that fun stuff, and which is way over my head, by the way, all that terminology. Hit me up in the comments section, by the way. Let me know what you think about this Reuben Foster investigation here. Cam Rogers coming at you for the Cam Rogers Show, live from the AT&T Byron Nelson here in Dallas, Texas. That is the latest on Reuben. I am investigating as much as I can going forward about this, but The ultimate conclusion in terms of what went on, Reuben Foster broke up with Alyssa Ennis. Alyssa Ennis did not like that and reacted in unsavory fashions, I guess you could say, and basically made up all these accusations in terms of Reuben Foster trying to ruin his career in essence, and she said that. So testified under oath yesterday that all of it was a lie. Looks like the charges will be dropped, and Reuben Foster will go on his merry way. The footnote, of course, Roger Goodell. Will he suspend Reuben? Got to stay tuned on that one. All right, so that's the latest on Foster. Let's talk about Dez Bryant. So he recently took to Twitter and said he doesn't regret passing up on the Baltimore Ravens contract offer, which is interesting considering Dez is still on the open market and there hasn't been much buzz about a team actually interested in him. So he didn't sign with the Ravens earlier in the offseason. The Ravens were a wide receiver-starved team at one point. They eventually got Michael Crabtree, John Brown, Willie Snead. So they have a couple of good wide receivers there now. So it was a multi-year deal. Now, according to Ian Rappaport, Dez Bryant actually wants a one-year deal so that he can kind of prove himself and then cash out in 2019 with something of a long-term contract. So in addition, Dez also blasted the media for portraying him as difficult to work with, and I have seen that a little bit, and I just don't think that's really the right way to go about it if you are a broadcaster, if you are a pundit out there talking about Dez Bryant. I don't think he's bad to work with. I mean, I can't imagine him being a cancer, as some fans are calling him, in the locker room. Is he a guy with a big-time personality? Yes. Is he a diva at times? Sure. But all of it comes down to the motivation to wanting to help out an NFL team. You know, you've seen him passionately on the sidelines with the Dallas Cowboys before, talking about how, he wants the ball. He wants to help the team win a football game. And I understand where his motivations are coming from. So just to kind of say that Dez Bryant is a blanket cancer for a locker room, I think is just lazy analysis. So I know where he is coming from in terms of the outrage that he is portraying here on social media, saying that the media has it all wrong right now. So as for Baltimore, obviously we'll no longer look into Dez Bryant. I think they're in an okay position in terms of their wide receiving core. We'll see what Brashad Perriman can do. Now, I still have some teams that I'm looking out for in terms of Dez Bryant that may, look into him. And I got the New England Patriots at number 1 on my list. I'm looking at the Indianapolis Colts as well. They have a lot of salary cap space. There is a need there at wide receiver because their number 1 guy is T.Y. Hilton, all right? So he's a good player. But after that, it's like Chester Rogers and Ryan Grant. So, yeah, not exactly a compelling wide receiver number 2 for the Colts. The Houston Texans is a team that I'm also watching out for as well. DeAndre Hopkins recently took to Twitter picture of Dez Bryant in the 88 and the Houston Texans colors there, and the Green Bay Packers, another team. But as we stand right now, there is no interest from Green Bay in favor of Dez Bryant, but I did want to slap them on the list there in light of the recent Jason Witten comments, right? Because Jason Witten said, well, maybe Dez will go to the Green Bay Packers, so I did throw them on my list there. Seattle makes so much sense considering the Seahawks recently brought in Brandon Marshall. So if you're bringing in Brandon Marshall, who's coming off an injury, why not bring in Dez Bryant? At least take a look at the guy, for crying out loud, because there is a need there at wide receiver as well for Seattle. After Doug Baldwin, you got Marcus Johnson and, yeah, that's really it. Tyler Lockett, who has really not emerged as a wide receiver number 2 here. So let me know in comments what you think about the Dez Bryant situation. What team do you think he should sign with? Maybe we'll feature your comments live here on the broadcast as I am here at the AT&T Byron Nelson second-round competition going on right now. Mark Leishman is your leader as we stand. The Aussie, by the way, the guy I picked to win this tournament on Wednesday, if you remember from that show last episode. So be sure to let me know what you guys think about the next team for Dez Bryant. Cam Rogers coming at you here from beautiful Trinity Forest Golf Club, a link-style course. Really cool setup. Happy to be here and happy to be bringing you guys all of the latest NFL headlines. So that's the deal with Dez Bryant there. Let's get to the next storyline, and it's Dak Prescott, who aspires to be the best Cowboys quarterback ever. So this is big-time expectations all of a sudden for Dak Prescott, and he recently spoke on a new contract that will eventually happen. Of course, Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones have spoken on the matter, and it was in response to an upcoming contract extension. But right now, he's got $630,000 as a base salary, so that's a rookie kind of salary as we stand. He's on the rookie contract so far, and Stephen Jones said, quote, "It's going to be as he deserves," which really doesn't give you an answer one way or the other. But I will say this. Dak Prescott has to improve upon his 2017 campaign. 22 touchdowns, 13 interceptions last year. 2016 was a lot better, of course, 23 touchdown passes and not a lot of interceptions at all, only 4, in fact. And so for Dak now, he's going to have to channel his 2016 form more so than last year's form. And look, he did not have a lot of help in regards to injuries on the offensive line a year ago. Of course, the Ezekiel Elliott suspension there as well. That was something that the Cowboys had to deal with there. And, some injuries on defense, too, certainly didn't help things. Sean Lee really didn't prove any durability last season. So for Dak Prescott now, he's going to have to, like I said, channel 2016 form, but also get on the same page here with some of these new wide receivers, more notably a Deontay Thompson, right, and Allen Hurns. These guys are now in town. Dez Bryant is no more. Bryce Butler is no more. So for Dak Prescott, it's a chemistry standpoint as well as, not turning the football over as much, being more precise with throwing the football, and making better decisions, of course, in general, as he enters year 3 in the NFL. But I'll say this. In terms of QBR the last couple of seasons, the metric that ESPN uses and all that, he's highly ranked. He's in the same company as Tom Brady, as Aaron Rodgers, as Matt Ryan. And all these guys are making fat money right now, and Matt Ryan just cashed out big time on an extension. Aaron Rodgers is probably coming up next. So Dak Prescott's in that kind of company. If he can really prove himself in 2018, I'll tell you what, he's presenting himself with an argument that he deserves to get paid within that kind of company. And you have heard before, of course, Kirk Cousins getting $84 million in guaranteed money. It's contract after contract after contract where quarterbacks are just upping one another. So we'll see what happens with Dak, but he aspires to be one of the top-line quarterbacks in Cowboys history. We'll see if that comes to fruition. Plenty of time for that to happen. All right, so that's the latest on Dak there. You guys probably heard this news yesterday about the Cleveland Browns. They will be featured on this season's Hard Knocks. So Hugh Jackson, offensive coordinator Todd Haley, Baker Mayfield, right? And then you got Tyrod Taylor as well, Drew Stanton, Jarvis Landry's in town, Carlos Hyde is there as well. So all these new pieces here are going to be featured on the Hard Knocks this season, which I think will be interesting. There are some storylines to look out for. Baker Mayfield in front of the cameras. How is he going to be there? The coming back from the Owens 16 campaign a year ago. How do the Browns bounce back from that? Honestly, there's nowhere else but up after you go 0-16. And then how do all these new additions really mesh? Especially on the offense, talking about Hyde, like I mentioned, and Jarvis Landry. And really, Josh Gordon is an air quote new addition because we haven't seen him in quite some time. So we'll see how he kind of adapts there. Antonio Callaway, the rookie. Darren Fells, new tight end in town for the Cleveland Browns. So a lot of new pieces there on that offense. And let me know what you guys think. Are you going to be watching Hard Knocks this season with the Cleveland Browns? Give me a heart for, oh yeah, give me a like for, just a little too boring for my liking. But, there's a fair share of storylines here. The Cincinnati Bengals were once on Hard Knocks, for crying out loud, and the Bengals aren't exactly all that exciting. So I think the Cleveland Browns are certainly a more compelling story here, if you will. And be sure to hit me up in comments as well. I want to hear your explanations, and I'll be tracking the broadcast here and seeing what you guys say. So heart and like, respectively. We're on Facebook Live. We're also on YouTube On Demand. You guys are watching the Cam Rogers Show. I am Cam Rogers. Hit me up on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. You may be wondering where I am. I'm at the AT&T Byron Nelson here, Trinity Golf Club, Trinity Forest Golf Club. Fantastic golf course, and it's second-round coverage right now of the AT&T AT&T Byron Nelson. So that's all going on at this juncture here. Mark Leishman is currently in the lead as we stand. The Aussie, he's great in the wind, but there hasn't been any wind so far. And usually for Texas courses, it's all about the wind to create that difficulty. But when it's quiet out there, and by the way, there's no trees around this golf course, greens are pretty receptive right now, and it's easy to hit greens as well when there's no wind. So there you go. Let's continue along with the NFL headlines here, and we'll talk about Mike Pence, who was recently, or not so recently, gifted Super Bowl 52 tickets by Texans owner Bob McNair. And you see on their screen, they're valued at $15,000. Now, you may recall Mike Pence showed up to an Indianapolis Colts game last year against the San Francisco 49ers and didn't stay for that game, actually left because some of the players were kneeling during the national anthem. So this is interesting in regards to a couple of things here. So first of all, Bob McNair was actually questioned or deposed, if you will, for the Colin Kaepernick grievance case against the National Football League. So McNair is also surfaced or has surfaced before in terms of controversial comments made. You know, the prisoners comment that he made recently, and now being deposed in the Colin Kaepernick case, and now this story coming out about gifting Mike Pence Super Bowl 52 tickets. And so certainly doesn't really help Bob McNair's PR standing, I guess you could say, in many regards, especially in terms of the Colin Kaepernick loyalists out there and the Colin Kaepernick camp, if you will. So just an interesting little nugget there about Mike Pence being invited to the Super Bowl 52 game most recently in Minneapolis there. So we'll see if he actually shows up to Super Bowl 53 or an NFL regular season game in 2018. And we'll see if players actually kneel during the national anthem and if he'll just leave again. You know, a lot of people thought that maybe it was just a stunt, that he wasn't even planning on being there for the entire game. Certainly up for discussion, and be sure to let me know in comments about that story there. All right, I mentioned Terrell Owens. He's trying to make a comeback in the National Football League, and he's trying to become the first Hall of Famer to be an active player in the NFL. He is in this year's Hall of Fame class. He is 44 years old, ladies and gentlemen, and he is trying to get back into the NFL fray. I love this. This is kind of in line with the Kurt Warner story. Remember Kurt Warner recently saying that he was talking with an NFL head coach or an NFL coach to come back into the league and perhaps play at the quarterback position. Well, now Terrell Owens, yes, the comeback is certainly in process right now, and he looks good. I mean, you look at the tape, he's pretty chiseled, folks. I mean, the abs are carved up. He's in good shape. I'm thinking he could be an effective wide receiver out in the NFL, especially when you have randos as potentially wide receiver number twos out there. Looking at you, Seattle Seahawks, with perhaps Marcus Johnson being your second best wide receiver. So, I mean, why not just bring this guy in for at least a workout? I really don't understand why teams aren't doing this. And I guess I could understand from a PR standpoint that maybe you don't want the attention that perhaps Terrell Owens could bring. But still, I mean, let's be honest, folks, especially in the AFC, the NFL is watered down in terms of talent at this juncture. And a lot of good rookie wide receivers came into the fray via the draft this year, and I'm excited to see how the likes of Calvin Ridley and Callaway and Anthony Miller all play. But let's be honest with ourselves. You guys remember watching some NFL games last year, and a lot of them were not very exciting. A lot of them were clunkers, were boring, were low scoring. They had people like Tom Savage playing quarterback and Scott Tolzien. So what am I trying to say here? Insert Terrell Owens and bring some excitement back into the NFL. That's what I'm saying. I'll get into a segment later today about my top 5 teams for TO. And I'll tell you what, I got compelling arguments for every single one of them. So stay tuned for that. But right now, the story is Terrell Owens wants to come back into the NFL and be the first active player who was in the Hall of Fame. Hasn't played since 2010, of course, with the Cincinnati Bengals and Chad Ochocinco. No player has made an NFL comeback after being inducted into the Hall of Fame, but head coach Joe Gibbs did return to coach the Redskins in 2004 after being inducted in 1996. So a coach has done it, player has not. So that's the rundown there with Terrell Owens. All right. Let's go to the next headline here. The Philadelphia Eagles have accepted President Trump's invitation to the White House. Of course, that is tradition there. The Super Bowl winners make the trip there to the White House. The Patriots did have some players that did not attend last year's meeting, and there will be some players here from the Philadelphia Eagles that will not attend as well. Several players have announced that they would boycott the visit here. So in total, 24 Patriots players skipped the White House visit last year. I don't know how many players for the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be not showing up to this visit, but we shall see. I do want to hear from you guys, all right? Would you visit the White House if you won the Super Bowl? So just pretend here that you are a Super Bowl champion, all right? You have to decide, because President Trump just invited you to the White House. Are you going or are you not? Give us a heart for Make America Great Again. You are going. You're going to go see President Trump. Give us a like for Not My President. Be sure to hit me up. Let me know what you think. Be sure to expand upon yourselves as well in the comments section. I think I can get some pretty fun comments here from you guys. You guys usually make me laugh in the comments section, so be sure to not disappoint there, okay? So let me know what the deal is there in terms of the White House visit. All right, let's get to the next headline on my list here, and it's about DeMarcus Lawrence. And I think this is just a great story. And why is this a great story? Because D-Law got the franchise tag, and you know what? He's okay with that. That is a fresh air kind of situation here, because we have gone through these situations before where players get the franchise tag and they complain. We've seen it with Jimmy Graham. We're seeing it right now with Le'Veon Bell. We've seen it with Kirk Cousins, although that was a botched situation with the Washington Redskins. DeMarcus Lawrence is totally fine with playing on the franchise tag. He's a star player for the Dallas Cowboys, amassed a good amount of sacks in 2017, 14 and a half to be exact. And he knows that he's confident in his abilities, and if he has a very good 2018 campaign, then he will have no problem getting paid. So he understands the process here, and no complaints at all about getting this tag. And here's the problem with some NFL players. They want the security, but don't understand the other side of a team putting a long-term investment in a player, which you have to at least look at. Some teams out there have made leaps of faith, if you will, with long-term extensions or fat contracts. Just look at Brock Osweiler, for example, and how that whole debacle happened with the Houston Texans. So you got to understand it from the business side of things with the team, but of course I do understand it from the player side as well. They want that security, but also teams don't want to shell out a whole lot of money here if indeed there isn't a good sample size of data of good play. Now, I've been saying before and have said before about the Jimmy Garoppolo situation that I thought maybe the franchise tag would have made more sense, because you're talking about a guy with 7 games of starting experience. Why shell out a big-time, long-term contract for Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Because you're making that investment with a very small sample size. Now, obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo got the long-term contract and all that stuff, and I'm fine with that. But for DeMarcus Lawrence here, breath of fresh air, if you will, in terms of his comments. He is so willing to play on the tag, and I am so happy that we have players out there that think that way, all right? So that's the rundown with DeMarcus Lawrence of the Dallas Cowboys. Let's get to the next headline on my list. The Seattle Seahawks have signed their rookie linebacker, Shaquem Griffin. A great story at that. Of course, coming out of UCF, Pete Carroll saying he has looked very comfortable, very natural throughout the process of rookie mini camp and as we enter OTAs, etc. And here's the deal with Shaquem Griffin. Likely to be an outside linebacker, probably more of a depth option behind KJ Wright. That is my understanding right now in terms of how they're going to use Shaquem Griffin on that defensive side for the Seattle Seahawks, a team that is, let's face it, in a bit of a reset, probably more of a rebuild at this point with so much turnover on that defensive side. I'm not really faithful in that offensive line going into 2018. You guys know I'm scared about that wide receiving core as well. Doesn't look very good either. So a lot of things to point to in terms of concerns with the Seattle Seahawks. But I'll tell you one thing, Shaquem Griffin is not one of them. He's going to be a big-time player for Seattle in 2018. And as we stand, more of a depth option at linebacker. But we'll see. With all the changes there on the defensive side, they may call Shaquem earlier than we actually think to be a starter at the linebacker position. So that's the rundown there with Griffin being signed with the Seattle Seahawks. All right, next headline on my list. It's back to Terrell Owens. This time he's wondering why Jerry Jones hasn't fired head coach Jason Garrett by now. So T.O. is trying to make the NFL comeback, as well as saying some controversial things here about the Dallas Cowboys, saying that they should fire Jason Garrett here. And Garrett is 67-53 overall as the Cowboys head coach, has been the head coach since 2010 when he became the coach back in Week 10 of that season. Hasn't advanced past the divisional round of the playoffs. And I think it's fair to say he's on the hot seat here entering 2018. If the Dallas Cowboys do not enter the playoffs in 2018, I think Jason Garrett is as good as gone. Now, this could be a Marvin Lewis type of situation, by the way, where Jerry Jones is just a Jason Garrett loyalist here and just buys into whatever the process is that Jason Garrett has implemented with the Dallas Cowboys and lets him be the head coach and just sits there and prays that the Dallas Cowboys will go ahead and win a Super Bowl under Jason Garrett. Like I said, Marvin Lewis kind of situation, and we all kind of conjecture here that maybe Marvin Lewis has something on Paul Brown, and maybe that's why he's still the head coach. I don't know. Let me know. Is Jason Garrett on the hot seat in 2018? Especially you Cowboys fans out there, be sure to hit me up in comments here on Facebook Live as well as YouTube. I do go back and read your comments, and I try to respond to all of the nice ones. All right, I try to hold off on the negative comments about my hair and all that stuff, which of course is easy to pick apart there. All right, so that's the rundown with the latest NFL headlines here on the Cam Rogers Show, presented by the Guild. Are you staying in Austin anytime soon? I'm talking about StayGuild.com. It is a luxury Airbnb. I'm telling you, it is a fantastic service. You got to check them out, StayGuild.com. Use promo code CHATSPORTS. Get 15% off your next stay. They're sponsoring the Cam Rogers Show here today, and we're happy to have them along for the ride. All right, so you guys saw my headline about Terrell Owens. T.O. is trying to make the NFL comeback. So you know what? I sat back and said, okay, I have formulated my top 5 teams for Terrell Owens. I'll count you down from number 5 to number 1. But just for context's sake here, this is T.O. saying he wants to be the first active player in the NFL who is also in the Hall of Fame. Never has been done before. A coach has done it, but a player has not. So that's why I'm doing this segment. I'm not just kind of pulling it out of thin air here and saying, hey, let's talk about a Terrell Owens comeback. No, this is him actually saying this, and he wants to be back in the NFL. And I'll tell you what, we also have a picture of him doing the driveway sit-ups, and we'll show that later throughout this segment. The guy's ripped still, by the way. He's carved up. He looks like he is ready to play in the NFL. And like I said before on this program, the NFL is watered down, particularly the AFC, especially in terms of talent. So T.O. could certainly pose an argument to be a wide receiver in the NFL.